Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. So, I'm going to read the bio of my guest today. I have to preface all of this with most of our Ivory Tower Boiler Room episodes are marked as explicit on all the podcast platforms. But, if your virgin ears out there are not ready for a bi male sexual empowering presence of us talking about everything sexual, um, then still listen and then recommend it to your friends. But you've been warned. That's my warning. Okay, so Zachary Zane, who's joining me, writes this really amazing column. It's called Sexplain It, and it's a sex and relationship advice column at Men's Health, where he answers a range of questions pertaining to masculinity, ethical non-monogamy, sexual insecurities, and the LGBTQ community. His work has appeared in the New York Times, Vice, GQ, Rolling Stone, The Advocate, Tamron Hall, and Nightline. He is joining me from Brooklyn. So I'm on Long Island, little like 50 miles away from you. But yeah, it's wonderful to be joined with the official Boyslut, which all of you out there, Zachary, when this is coming out, his Memoir and Manifesto has just been published. So get your hands on Boyslut, a Memoir and Manifesto. And I
Yes,
think they
it's
can get
out
their
May
ears.
9th.
Yeah, and they can get their
Yes,
ears listening.
I have an Audible. Yeah, I have an Audible as well, and I'm the one actually reading the Audible. Which someone else needs to listen to it because there's no way in hell I'm listening to myself reread the book again. That was a harrowing process. That I hopefully never have to read a book of mine again.
I'll listen to it for you, Zachary, and then message you.
Thank you. I don't
I'm
think I can
sure it's
listen to
gonna
my
sound good.
voice for. No, I'm sure it does. No, they were very happy with it. I'm happy with it, but I think just hearing my voice for an entire book would be like, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah, well, it's like when I listen back to these podcast episodes. I mean, you get accustomed, but I hear my idiosyncrasies, so I can understand. Um, well, first things first. I was like, how am I gonna hook Zachary Zane? Because he's on all of this media circuit, publicity tour extravaganza. And I was like, well, what's a nice Jewish boy like Zachary Zane doing claiming the term boy slut? I mean, I think it's so beautifully rebellious, but also, I mean, there's a lot of queer male Jewish energy and
There sure
trailblazing.
is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, so I just wonder when you look back at that Zachary from Los Angeles, right? Or you grew up in the Valley, from what I remember.
Correct.
Um, did my homework, and you begin our experience in your memoir and manifesto with this image of seeing your therapist, your childhood therapist, and you imagine him naked. And like that's our beginning journey. I mean, did you now think, oh, this is where I would have ended up in my career?
Oh my God, no. I originally was going to get a PhD in clinical psychology. I was working at Harvard Medical Center as a smoking cessation researcher and counselor, and I studied psych and neuroscience in school. That's why I did my internships and I took the GRE, I took the subject test, I had academic papers that I published where I was the first author, and I was about to apply, and I kind of had a uh like panic attack. I was like, for the seemingly altruistic profession, they are cutthroat, they are nasty, they will steal your work, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I ended up starting to write, and then I wrote a piece about bisexuality, my first piece ever that actually went viral, and then from that I started writing more and more about bisexuality because there was such a dearth of content, and the content that was out was, this is almost 10 years ago, but the content that was out was very much like 10 things to never say to a bisexual person, or trying to prove to gay and straight people that bisexual people are real and exist. But there wasn't any content for like bi people by people. So it's just like, okay, how do you deal with internalized biphobia? How do you deal with explicit biphobia from other people? How do you come out to your family? What are some of the challenges that come with dating as a bisexual person? And I kind of filled in the gap there to answering these questions and really making bi content for bi people. And that kind of took off. And before I knew it, like I did not think that this was going to be my profession, this was going to be my job. Um, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And yeah, and now, I get paid to go to sex clubs and write about it. I go and have sex with people, and that's part of my job. And I'm thinking of this man who had so much sexual shame when he was 8 years old that he would be in therapy, imagining his therapist naked, proceed to cry about it because I thought I was this terrible, evil, perverted, disgusting kid for imagining people naked. And I had so much sexual shame. And then, yeah, it is a complete 180. And when I kind of get frustrated or overwhelmed by my job or my life, I try to like remember how far I have grown, how lucky I am that I have this incredible career where I'm able to do this. I'm able to reach people and help people and speak to a community that I love and I feel a part of and very equipped to do. So when I'm sometimes drowning in emails and want to blow everything up, I'm like, Zach, look how far you've come. Look how much you're helping this community. Look how awesome your job is. Let's take a deep breath. Emails are annoying, but you'll be okay here.
Yeah, well, and like, did you feel that your upbringing, right? Like you talk about, you just said that you felt this shame. And I mean, your whole boy slut persona slash, I call it your empowering force that you brought in with, not
Yeah.
just your memoir and manifesto, which I mean, we'll get into, right? You do lay out this difference between memoir and manifesto, but you also have this amazing Substack called Boyslut, and I subscribe to it, to do my work. And like
Oh,
it
is that why
is
you subscribe?
that's why I
I'm
subscribed.
teasing.
Yeah,
I'm
just for the
teasing. I'm teasing. Hmm.
professionalization experience.
Yeah.
But you have one from March 20th. I had a complete stranger pick me up from the airport. To thank him, I fucked his brains out. Um, and then I like this other that says, um, love your mommy and daddy, breeding the biggest, juiciest, heftiest daddy ass rewired my baby queer brain. And
I do want
I
to
just
wait,
love
wait. Sorry,
these
continue. I
topics.
don't want to interrupt here.
No, go.
I want
Well,
to clarify that so the book is different than the zine. So I have the Substack that's kind of like a newsletter zine where I publish nonfiction erotica by myself and then also kinksters from across the globe here. And this was kind of a side project that people loved it, absolutely loved it. And I loved writing these pieces. And it's not just like a raunchy sex story. There's always something larger about how you overcame sexual shame or the intersection between, let's say, polyamory and bisexuality and sex, or an intersection between like sex and tech. So it speaks to something larger in society, in culture. And then it's also very hot and raunchy as well. And I should clarify that the book itself is not just like those essays. Those are just like hot, sexy, fun, independent sex stories. Versus this really is a memoir about how I was able to overcome sexual shame and create and be a part of this bisexual, polyamorous, kink positive community. So I always am trying to differentiate between the tone and the style of the digital zine and then also the book because it is different. But I think one thing that's interesting is, because I write this zine and I'm so explicit and graphic and open about my sex life, they kind of assume that, oh, Zach is such an open person, which actually isn't necessarily that true. I feel very comfortable and very safe writing about my hairy asshole and me getting pegged or whatever the fuck. But like when it comes to other aspects of myself and what I share, I actually don't share that much. And if you notice on social media, I always keep things like light, fun, flirty, and sexy. I'm not talking about really when I'm crying over a breakup. I don't Instagram that live. I don't talk about relationship with my parents. I don't talk about the times I've really struggled with partners or treated partners poorly. Of course, that was never on purpose. It was never malicious, but because I was coming from a place of shame and insecurities, I lashed out and was not great to my partners. And in this book, I really delve into that. So this book for me is significantly more vulnerable. It's significantly more open and scary than me just writing a crazy sex story.
yeah. Well, and as we think of TV film examples, like I don't want to I mean, I know you were raised by a Reformed Jewish family, which for, you know, uh um of those who are not up on their nomenclature of the difference between, Reform, Orthodox, conservative Judaism, right? Reform is the more liberal minded usually.
What
And
did I call it? I have a brief description of being like, so I'm reform, and if you don't know what this means, and I described it something. Where is it?
yeah,
Sorry,
we'll
keep
have to,
talking. I'm gonna look
yeah, but
through. Yeah.
like what fascinates me is it usually is that reform coming out Jewish family experience that we do see. And like, I don't know if you remember, but Queer as Folk, one of the characters has that Jewish mother who's like the biggest ally of P Flag, and she owns does she own the diner? I'm trying to remember, but she's like
Yeah.
a waitress at the diner. And we even see that in, I think, Not Another Gay Movie. It's also a Jewish mother. Like the Jewish mother and the gay son and the queer son is a
It's a
big
trope.
media trope.
It's a
Mhm.
trope. No, so I talk about, okay, I can read this little section from it where I talk about knowing that my sexual shame was not because of religion. So I say religion wasn't the culprit. I grew up in Los Angeles' San Fernando Valley, aka the Valley. Both my parents are liberal, reform-ish Jews. In case you aren't familiar, Reform Jews are the quote-unquote chiller denomination who tend to be more culturally Jewish than strictly religious. Even though I did study the Torah, Talmud, and Mishnah in day school, my parents made it very clear from a young age that we saw the Bible as fiction. It was not the word of God, so I could pick and choose the good parts and let go of the rest. All of the stuff about homosexuality being an abomination, honey, you can just skip right over that part, Mama Zane said. To be honest, I'm happy that religion wasn't the root of my sexual shame, because frankly, it's so basic to get sexually fucked up by organized religion, and I ain't no basic bitch.
Well, I absolutely love that you talk about that because, like, my upbringing, I had come out in ninth grade in high school, and
Wow,
now I'm
fucking
30.
young.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's been 15 years, and
Yeah, it was before
I
everyone
was
and their mother was coming out in middle school.
I know, I was a
Sorry, keep going.
trendsetter,
Yeah.
Zachary.
You were a
But
trailblazer. You were.
trailblazer, always ahead of the curve. No, just joking. But I grew up Catholic, and I have though, um like like I have Jewish ancestry that I started to discover actually in the last few years. And I've always like had more, I don't know, my now it kind of makes sense. My family does have a Jewish aesthetic, especially my dad's side. And I'm like, I always was rejecting the Catholic, like it was South Jersey. So I grew up in New Jersey outside Philly, but like we still had these courses on especially not masturbating. Like it got very intense in middle
Yeah.
school about, you know, like I was getting that message, but then from our public schooling, I was actually watching HIV AIDS documentaries and learning about the health aspects of masturbation and pornography. So it was like
Yeah.
it's two, like where religion I was seeing Catholicism was really hammering down this abomination narrative, and I actually rejected it and was like, no, I'm gonna come out. And I actually came out to my friend when we were in Catholic mass. So I was
Oh,
a
wow.
rebel, but I'm like, no, this religion doesn't speak to me, which everyone can make up their own decision, right?
Of
Make
course.
up their mind about that. But so I think it's important that you explain this was not coming, your shame wasn't rooted in religion for you. Like that's
It's and
not,
what I would
yeah.
Yeah, I think what I was trying to do by this, and again, even though I said I ain't no basic bitch, obviously that's a joke, and we're all, experience sex negativity or sexual shame for a myriad of reasons. But that was kind of the point of it, where I feel like I actually grew up in this sex positive, liberal, like queer affirming household. I had gay uncles on both sides of my family, my mom's brother, my dad's brother. So I knew it was a-okay to be gay, and still I had so much sexual shame around my bisexuality, just around sexuality in general. And it shows just how pervasive sexual shame is and sex negativity is and how insidious it is. So even though I didn't have this traumatic moment, let's say, when I got like kicked out of my house for being gay, I still did not have a healthy relationship with sex. And that's kind of the point of this, where it's just like, no matter who you are, no matter your gender, your race, your sexual orientation, your age, we grow up in a society that's sex negative. So we're going to soak up messages from media, from our peers, from teachers, from family, friends, religion, culture, everything. So you just can't escape it. No one grows to the age of 25 and ends up with a healthy sexuality, by accident. It has to be something that you work on. You have to actively combat all these aspects of society. So the reason why I was bringing this up was to show that, like, hey, no matter who you are, whether it's religion or something else, you probably don't have the healthiest relationship with sex, and that's okay. And just because you didn't have this terrible upbringing doesn't automatically mean, oh, you have a healthy and great relationship with sex
Yeah. Well, and how
and
long
your
ago
identity.
how long ago was it when you actually first started your men's health Sexplain It column? Hi, this is Dr. Andrew Rimby, the host and director of the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. I hope you're enjoying what you're watching on the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. So to watch the rest of the episode, head to our Patreon. It is patreon.com/ Ivory Tower Boiler Room. That's Ivory Tower Boiler Room. And you can watch the rest of the episode on our $5 a month membership called ITBR Student, or join the ITBR Professor membership. It's only $10 a month. You get access to all of our videos. You get access to both of our book clubs, the Ivory Tower Boiler Room and the True Crime and Academia book club. Plus, you unlock all of our other episodes. So at the ITBR Student, you only get access to our weekly interviews and the True Crime and Academia episodes. For $10 a month, you get access to our ITBR rewatches, our Teaches series, and True Crime and Academia rewatches and Teaches series, plus the book clubs. Okay, can't wait to see you all on Patreon. And just a reminder, I also offer consultation services. It is $30 for your initial consultation. You get a 1 hour private Zoom with me, and I will help you whether you want to create your own podcast and or media brand, you want to navigate academia as an undergrad or grad student, you need help with technology as it relates to teaching or media. Do you want to expand your social media presence as an artist, writer, podcaster, or academic, or even crafting your public humanities identity? I will help you with my consultation services. You can also find that on Patreon as well. Okay. Thank you all for watching and for supporting the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. Bye.